What if the biggest mistake that most content creators make is just talking too much? In this episode, I sit down with Julian Rogers, a veteran Caribbean journalist who spent over 6 decades interviewing everyone from politicians to everyday people. And he has strong opinions on how content should be created. Today we learn why silence can be more powerful than talking, and how leaving gaps can expose truth, especially when someone isn't being honest. Julian also explains why preparation is non-negotiable, including the extreme lengths he's gone to just to be competent to ask the right questions. And finally, we go deep on storytelling and why most modern content misses the human impact, and how one event can ripple across families, communities, and history itself. If you're a creator, journalist, podcaster, or business owner who's using content to build trust, this episode will recalibrate how you show up on camera. Enjoy my conversation with Julian Rogers. Let's make useful content. So what's your philosophy on doing interviews? Seeing as you've been a journalist for so very long and you've done interviews of people not just in the region but all around the world, what's your philosophy on interviews?
I think at the heart of the interview is that the audience wants to understand what that person is about. And so your challenge, your job really is to get that person to explain themselves, what they do, and so on. A lot of people are interested in sharing their life experiences, challenges, that kind of thing. And so the real challenge for somebody who's asking questions is, first of all, to understand and appreciate, look, this person wants to speak, and you have to give them an opportunity to speak. Like I always tell people, for instance, in terms of training, if you're conducting an interview, you must be listening. You're not there to badger people, because badgering really stops them from being as open as they can be. And one of the techniques that I use and learned very early is that, 1, I listen, and 2, I don't try to fill their spaces, which is a temptation, because if a person stops talking, you're trying to jump in. Whereas you want to give them the space to gather their thoughts. Now, I don't give that luxury to politicians. It's a different kind of animal, because I don't believe anything they tell me. And I know the audience doesn't believe until they can prove that what they're saying is really true. So therefore, there are times when I will just leave the gap. And when the gap is left, that is when they tell a lie. In other words, they're trying to fill in the thing, right? But I think that the heart of the interview is about, well, first of all, is preparation. I mean, instant preparation in these series that we've done. From my point of view, it's not that I'm starting from scratch. It is a matter of understanding that I ask you, that's why, for instance, in the setup, I ask, what is the direction that you want to go in as far as the interview is concerned? Yeah. What that sets, it sets a parameter. In other words, the person is comfortable talking to you about this particular area. Now, when they start talking, they also open up things that you need to follow up on. So that really gives you an opportunity to expand the conversation. And I think that, as you notice, there are specific questions that I refer to in every one of the interviews, because there's a pattern that develops.
Oh,
which is,
tell me more about that. I want to hear more.
Yeah, the pattern, for instance, if you notice in the interviews, I'm giving people an opportunity to talk about their feedback from what's happening at the summit. What is their contribution to the overall Caribbean connected Caribbean experience? What do they see in the future? In other words, what are the challenges they're facing now? What they expect to tackle, and what that future, future environment they would like to see. People like to talk about what they're working on and what they want to see happen, right? And in that context, they also talk about the things they're disappointed about. They're not happy about this or whatever the case may be. And now we have their particular subjects that are tied to particular people, whether you're dealing with health or agriculture or energy or technology, whatever the subject, there are current talking points around these particular areas. If I was dealing with health, for instance, I'd be talking about the challenge of non-communicable diseases in the Caribbean. What is the prevalence? What's happening? What's being done? Right? Who's involved? The stakeholders. And the stakeholders involve ordinary people as opposed to the technical people and so on. If you talked about food, we were talking about, we go from the high-level discussion about the regional high import bill, and you're working with a number, but we want to translate that number down to ordinary people and talk about consumption, production. You know, we need to grow food, whether we're growing food on a large scale or whether we're growing food in the backyard garden. Then how are we changing tastes and preferences as far as food is concerned? What happens in the school meal feeding program? What happens in the restaurants, hotels? What are they serving on people? Are they using our ingredients and therefore helping the farming community? And as you talk about the farmers, you start talking about their production capacity, whether they're working together, whether they're working singly, and so on. So all these areas just come up and give you an opportunity to expand on a basic topic, but to pull it out and stretch it out, etc., so that you have something that is fulfilling for the audience to engage in. But I think when I talk to you that way, I talk to you on the basis of preparation. Preparation is very, very key.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate that having done a lot of interviews over a period of time, I have a reserve of information about particular subjects, and therefore, you know, I feel I appear to be more comfortable in asking the questions, right?
I don't think it's an appearance at all. I think it actually is you are confident in your understanding of how the thing works and the things that you know. You have a reservoir, a reserve.
I draw on that. Yeah.
I find it to be very interesting because I guess when you were first starting off in your career, you probably did a lot more research than you do now. Is it that you now still give yourself to a lot of research before?
Well, I will tell you that you will be surprised the amount of research that I will do. I remember when the Central Bank of Barbados had asked me to create an event surrounding the visit to Barbados of top world economists. And I created something based on the Davos, my Davos thing, a 90-minute show where I would talk to the guests for 30 minutes. Then I would have another 30 minutes involving journalists from around the Caribbean, and then the audience would have the last 30 minutes. Now, I had done econ at university, but I wasn't prepared to be able to talk to the world-class economists. So I went online and I did a course literally over a 6-week period in preparation for doing these interviews. So that was that. So that was getting back to the fundamentals, but then I now had to now study who my guests were. And I would have maybe a month before to be able to understand and go through some of their key papers and whatever else. And I was doing that before ChatGPT was available and so on. So that the extensive preparation is demanding in a way, but it's important to be able to have that deepening, as far as I'm concerned, to be remotely comfortable with the interview. I'm a nervous wreck until I ask the first question.
Right.
You know, I would have a situation in which I will come on the set and I would know that this is the first question I'm going to ask, but how comfortable am I going to make you? In other words, Am I going to come straight out and say, look, you've been in Barbados for 2 weeks. Tell me exactly what happened. Did you have flying fish? And cuckoo, right? Or did you speak to the Prime Minister, and did the Prime Minister agree with you that we should implement a bird program?
Right.
So it all depends on how I size up but once I get that first thing off, I'm off to the races like a horse.
Right.
And I'm listening and looking for we often say where people can come and do an interview and they have 12 questions and so on, and they want these 12 questions go down the road. Yeah. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
You listen and you background yourself in such a way that you can respond. But the people you're talking to also give you an opportunity, an entree into some of the interesting things. So preparation.
Yeah.
Can't beat it.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think this current generation of journalists, they lack depth?
I am critical of them from the point of view that we have more opportunities for journalists to be deepened than we had in our time. And you have far more volumes of information than you could ever imagine. And I say to journalists, look, in our day, we started as what we call a general reporter. If it was a fire, they sent you. If it was a tourism summit, they sent you. If the Prime Minister was calling election, they sent you. Same person trying to cover 12, 15 different areas. After a while, once you got a certain level of experience, the news director would decide, okay, Rogers, if there's any health issue, you're doing health.
Yeah.
John, you're going to do crime. You're going to do parliament, etc. And they gave you each a particular responsibility and area to cover. Now, I say to the young journalists that I talk to at the University of the West Indies, here's my approach that I would suggest you do. You pick an area and you deepen yourself. You become what I call a subject matter expert. All right? So you want health. I'm gonna be on the health beat. I talk about the non-communicable diseases, etc. But in your national health sector, you have a hospital, you have polyclinics, you have a medical association of doctors, you have a training under the university, and all these are stakeholders, plus you have the general public. Mm-hmm. Okay? So what is your job as a reporter? To report on the interests of all of those people. Now, how are you going to do that? By talking to them. Right. Okay? So if you're going to be the health journalist, I say you go to the medical association people, you go to the Ministry of Health, you go to a doctor, you go to the polyclinic, etc., and you talk to them. So tell us your story. Right. I want to understand what the challenges are of the health sector so that I can better report on it. Right. Those people are going to open up to you. They're going to automatically be your resource people, right? And anything that you don't understand, you're not clear about, you can be able to pick up the phone and call and say, look, I hear so. Or they'll pick up the phone and call you and say, I think you should know so. Now that's at the national level. Those people at the national level are going to connect you with the people at the regional level and institutions. And the regional people connect you to the international. So you know what's going to happen? You're going to get a call and say, we have a meeting in so. We want you to come. We're going to pay for you to go to the meeting so you can be exposed to the international perspectives as far as this sector is concerned. Yeah. You're in a position to report confidently and competently on this sector. You are immediately no more valuable to your organization. Yeah. And whether you stay there or not, you're now deepened as an excellent reporter. And you can go on from just being reporting to doing documentaries, to doing podcasts, to doing all kinds of different things. Yeah. I say to these guys, you guys are so lucky that you can do all of this. You have all the information at your disposal. Now, all you have to do, breaking the back of the people who say, boy, journalism not good, is to show them that you can be a good journalist by deepening and becoming an expert. And if you make a mistake, the first thing you do to the public is, we got it wrong. Right. And you fix it. Right. And you move on.
Right. Why do you think people are afraid to just say we got it wrong? What was the problem?
I think that my experience is that the people who manage the newsrooms don't like to admit easily that they got something wrong. And that creates a distrust among the public. If you got it wrong, they're afraid to put it on the front page to say, look, yesterday we reported on so. But they see all the international people do it with ease and consistently, right? We reported on such a situation yesterday. We said 12 people died. As it turned out, when we checked it, it was only 5. Right? People respect that. People respect the fact that you have the competence to say, hey, we got it wrong, and this is where the thing is. And once you build that trust with the audience, you're in positive territory. The audience starts then to say, when they get it wrong, they correct it, as opposed to so who just leave the thing, running in the wind, blowing in the wind.
Yeah. So there's a couple more things before I let you go.
You have to bite dinner, boy.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about trust. And you mentioned that when a journalist and newspaper organization gets something wrong, and they don't immediately come and say, well, we got this wrong, it probably messes with the public trust, right? So how can somebody who is a developing journalist and or someone who is looking to interface with the public with media maintain trust in a world where it's easy, very easily, your reputation could be ruined and you could destroy trust? What are some of the key ways to do that?
I come back to say that it is the responsibility of the editorial leadership to guide and manage you in that regard. You can't make those decisions on your own. You can't, as a young reporter, you can't just say, well, I go in and tell the people that we got it wrong. That is a high level editorial position. I think that young reporters are in a difficult situation, obviously, because you don't want to seem to be flying up in the face of your editor and saying, boss, we get it wrong, we need to, so as the case may be. That brings me to the point where I've been advocating that there are two things here. We need to train and deepen the leadership of the editorial departments, whether it's newspaper or television or radio, as the case may be. These newsrooms, because a lot of, in a number of instances, people have come into positions of responsibility without the requisite training and development. Right. Some by chance, some by virtue of their political allegiance and so on. That's the reality. But I've been trying to say that we spent a lot of time in the last 15, 20 years, training young journalists, but we also need to train their managers to understand what the new realities are of this editorial environment, because they have to make a lot of decisions very quickly, and unless you walk through, even in like the digital currency that's being worked out in a number of jurisdictions, the central bank is practicing in what they call a sandbox. So you can have a training program where you present scenarios, and the managers of the editorial department can go through those things and learn to react and literally have a playbook. Mm-hmm. If so and so happens, this is our first line of response, as the case may be. If, however, the circumstances change, then we have to have a consultation and make a decision that requires maybe you pick up the phone and call a lawyer and say, we're in this particular position, and so on and so on and so on and so on. Listen, training is key for everybody. It's not just for the juniors, it is also for the managers in understanding exactly what the requirements are in the particular circumstances. That's how you're building trust.
Yeah. Right. All right, so lastly, I wanted to get your take on, there was a certain time, and they probably still do it, where they would refer to news as a news story. The idea of telling stories, the oral tradition, has been a part of the Caribbean for a very, very long time. How important is storytelling to you in journalism, and do you have any particular way that you like to tell stories?
It's interesting that you describe it in that way, because people are saying, "Oh, there's new stories," but the storytelling is a rich tradition in the Caribbean experience, and I've been particularly pushing the fact that the Calypsonian, for instance, is a storyteller of the first line. He's the anchor, long before I was anchoring the news or anybody for that matter. So that the storytelling hasn't changed in that the key elements remain. Something has happened. Why has it happened? Who has it affected, right? And what is the impact of that particular development for people beyond that? Yeah. I always say to people, look, every news story has a number of stakeholders. If there's a fire, let's say there's a fire downtown, who's affected? Right? A business place is on fire in downtown Port-of-Spain. So customers of that particular enterprise are affected.
Yeah.
Okay? The people who work there are affected.
Employees.
The owners are affected. Okay? The fire service is affected.
Yes. Yeah.
Because the fire service reached and they realized, boy, the hydrant not working, man. Right? Or the hose not long enough. Or the ladder not tight enough. Right? So all these stakeholders are affected, and the economy is affected, because there are no taxes going in from either the employees or the company as a result of the fire, because they shut down and they have to look for a new place or whatever the case may be. They have to find money, and the insurance company is involved, and the insurance people taking long to pay up the money and whatever else. You understand where I'm coming from?
Right.
So that one story that you think is just a fire is firing off in many directions like fireworks, because of so many people and so many interests are involved. That is the storytelling that we don't get right. It's like one guy who was a journalist, who was a top journalist in Trinidad, had to stop him from doing live reports. Right? I said, please, if he calls in and says he wants to do a live report, tell him, no, he's not going live, he's going on tape. You know why? Because what he did in one instance is that a fire broke out in Port-of-Spain. He arrived at the scene, immediately picked up his phone and called and said, I'm ready to report. Now, he didn't talk to anybody. Right? He didn't talk to the fire chief. He didn't talk to the businessman who was standing outside with tears in his eyes. He didn't talk to the workers who would say, boy, we can't go back in the building. We know when we can get another work. So how could he be reporting? What could he tell me? When did the fire start? Was, you don't know what caused the fire. So that's speculation, right? But you have to ask the question of the fire officer on duty and say, do you have any idea how this fire started? You would tell the boss it's too early, right? Or he would say they had an explosion. That's all I've been hearing from people next door, things like that. So you have to gather information first before you can say, I'm reporting live. It's best you go on tape anyhow, because you can stop and start and, you won't get it right first time unless you're really, really good. And not everybody is good at one take Charlie. It doesn't happen like that.
Right.
So I don't know. I keep telling people that there are certain basics within this thing of storytelling. And the storytelling, depending on what the circumstances are, can be very interesting and like they're human interest stories that really hit you first, right? Another time is a disaster story, and there's so flooding in Digamarchi. Somebody get washed away. The human element in there of people being affected, right? His family, his close family, extended family, his friends, co-workers, you go down the list. All these people have a stake in the fact that this man gone. There's a story to tell, but there are stories to tell over time. In other words, he gone, right? What happened? Why the flooding? Nobody cleaned the drain. What happened? The corporation didn't do their work, etc. And you just go down the list of looking at the things that are all connected to this one man drowning. And the story doesn't end today because there's recovery to be dealt with. right? The questions be asked of the corporation, the questions be asked of the government, and so on. You can go on and on and on and on over a period of time. So, storytelling.
I find you describe it in such a fascinating way. And here's the thing that is impacting me about the way you described it. When you said you have to talk to the workers who are now displaced, you have to talk to the business owner, you have to talk to the general public, you have to talk to the fire officers. It's almost like...
And the bystanders.
And the bystanders.
Yeah.
People who observe the thing. They're going to have information and things.
Right.
Earlier, when you were finishing your interview, and you were just about to exit the door and I ambushed you, right, to come back in. One of the things that you were talking about is the fact that just regular people with phones are now reporting.
Yes.
They are not taking the time to get those perspectives. They are giving their opinion along with the story. These two things...
And that is the difference between you as a journalist and the ordinary citizen who is capturing the same event that you are covering, but they don't have the same responsibility. They don't have the responsibility for verification. They could say what they like on the spot and say, boy, the fire broke out in my and people run. Your reporting requires you to verify facts with those people who can verify. Fire service, the owner of the property, the people who work there, eyewitnesses, immediately, the police. Verification is your job. The people who pick up the phone and film something and share it all over the place, they have no responsibility whatsoever. None. None whatsoever. You can't go and take a picture of somebody lying in the road and show the face and the blood and whatever else and so on. You can't do it. Yeah. You can't go and interview a child and put that on with the child face and whatever else and so on and so on. You cannot do it. It's against all the rules, right? When a person when a family is grieving and so on, you can't just go and chuck a microphone in their faces and tell me how you feel. And you put it on and you're giving all their grief all over the damn place, as the case may be. You have to be sensitive. You want to tell this story, you have to say, look, this family is distraught to the point where some people say, look, I'm prepared to go on camera and to share my feelings with you. Other people said, no. But you still have to report. The family is grieving with the loss of so, as the case may be, right? The story we're learning is that so. So there's a responsibility, which is very important in storytelling. You want to tell the story, but you don't want to injure people in the telling of the story, which I think is the sensitivity that you must understand. Right? Yeah. The public's demand for gory details is not your job. Your job is the facts of the situation. There was a fire. 10 people are out of jobs today. This businessman has lost all his property. He can rely on insurance. Well, he may tell you, I don't have any insurance. You can report that. The business owner says he does not have insurance. He's got to start from scratch. He's lost everything. Mm-hmm. And he's worried about what will happen to his employees. He's sensitive. He has a heart, as the case may be. Mm-hmm. All right? Somebody has lost their house in a house fire. How are you telling that story? A family tonight is literally homeless. They got to rely on their family and neighbors for a lodging until the government responds with some kind of accommodation, etc. They lost everything. They need clothes, they need toiletries, right? They need school books because the 2 children in the house now lost everything, etc. Those are the kind of specifics that I think a journalist has to be looking out for, because what that does, it helps in the process of help. In other words, the help is not only coming from the government and the government agency, it's coming from people who care. Yeah. So somebody with money hears that story, just drives down there very quietly and says, look, don't worry, I'm looking after you. Here's some money, here's some stuff. They don't want any no publicity, no fanfare, as the case may be, but somebody's taken care of. You with me?
Yeah.
That's our job.
Yeah.
That's why we have to get it right.
Yeah, I agree. I feel that.
Take the time to get it right, because it matters. And the other last element is that this is for the record. Somebody must be look back 25, 30, 50 years from now and know that this story was right. This event happened. These are the details. These are the facts.
Thank you so much, Julian, for sharing your decades of experience. What is 78 now?
Yeah, 78. I started when I was 16.
16? Oh my goodness. Thank you for making it all the way to the end of this episode of Useful Creator. I really do appreciate you spending your time with me. If you enjoyed today's conversation, I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn. You can find the link in the show notes. And while you're here, check out any of the other resources or links that we mentioned in this episode. And if you'd like to go deeper and find out more about how you can create useful content, you can subscribe to my newsletter at jumabannister.com, where I share more insights, strategies, and stories to help you become a more confident, consistent, skillful video creator.
The Useful Creator podcast is a Relate production.